Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Move podcast, brought to you today by Dry Farm Wines. George and I have partnered with Dry Farm Wines to pair pure lab-tested natural wines with each of the big three tours. So starting with our preview today, Tour of Italy, Tour de France, and the Tour of Spain. They take a whole new approach to wine sourcing. Wine is an ancient fermented drink, as we all know, and many of us consume. If you look if you're watching on YouTube, you can see George's incredible wine cellar back there. The crazy thing is the FDA has approved over 70 additives for most wines. Dry Farm comes in and sources biodynamic natural wine, sugar-free, lower alcohol, organically biodynamically grown, and additive-free. Special offer for our listeners. Head on over to dryfarmwines.com/wedo. Pick up your Italy pack. I think that's what we're talking about. We're talking about the Tour of Italy preview, and obviously a country that's steeped in the history of making wine. So check it out. That's dryfarmwines.com/wedo.
And you can drink a lot more than this stuff behind me and wake up the next day ready to go for a bike ride or whatever you need to do because of the lack of additives like you mentioned.
Yeah, we tested it. We tested it last summer. It was kind of shocking. We were going, and big difference. Anyways, Tour of Italy starting, it sounds funny, starts tomorrow, right? This is kind of a weird year. Both the Tour of Italy and the Tour de France start on a Friday, which I don't recall that ever happening. As the sport continues to try and broaden its base, this year also unique, starting in Hungary, which not for nothing is a little close to a war, but here we go. So it kicks off tomorrow with a hard uphill finish, 3 days in Hungary, a transfer day, and then back to Italy for 2.5 weeks of more action. So as we touched on a little bit yesterday as well, it's kind of one favorite here. I mean, Richard Carapaz, this is his race to lose. I think the thing that strikes me is that Ineos has kind of got their groove back, so to speak. And this is a kid who's won this race before, obviously. But barring an accident or an illness, hard to see anybody beating him, right, Johan?
He's definitely the number one favorite. Although, it's a bit difficult to go off the results of this year. He didn't have great results yet, but actually none of the favorites have. There's been a lot of sickness and not necessarily COVID related, but a lot of flu. Carapaz had, his last race was the Tour of Catalonia, and there he managed to win a stage and finish second overall after a monster ride with Sergio Higuita. The two of them went away with 100 kilometers to go. But yeah, his track record, in my opinion, is the best. He won the race in 2019, I guess. 2019. Before 2018, he was fourth. And since then, he also has finished second in the Vuelta and third in the Tour last year. Current Olympic champion in a great team, Ineos, a team which is completely dedicated to him. There's no other ambitions than protecting and helping Carapaz. So definitely the number one favorite. I think, barring any unexpected event, it's going to be difficult to beat him.
Johan, talk about the team a bit. He's bringing a hit squad of a team with Richie Porte, Sivakov, Ben Tulit. He's going to have some real good hitters on the climbs. Hopefully he'll be able to stay out of trouble.
Castroviejo.
So they're coming with a really super strong team. Perhaps maybe one of the strongest teams in the race with next to Bahrain.
I think.
Wait, sorry. One more time.
Bahrain.
It's Bahrain.
I'm not going to be able to say it the whole year, so you guys can laugh all you want. I'm going to say it. And I don't think Johan says it right either, because I listened to the Movida earlier, and he says it different every time.
So, I always say Bahrain, but it's Bahrain.
See? You just said it different twice in one sentence.
Okay, well, whatever. No, it's a strong team, but I think one of the main cards that play in Carapaz's favor also is that he is known to have an incredibly strong third week. All the races I've seen from him, the big tours, he was strong in the last week. In the Vuelta, he almost beat Roglic 2 years ago. Last year in the last week, he was up there in all the mountain top finishes. And the Giro is known to be, heavy in the last week. Whatever happens in the first week, as long as you don't lose too much time, it's fine. It's a game of waiting and be ready for the last week. So that's obviously something which is in favor of Carapaz.
Also, the low amount of time trialing, the low kilometers time of total time trial.
Yeah. I mean, yes. That would be a bit, but his main contenders are also not great time trialists, except maybe Almeida. But Simon Yates, Mikel Landa, Bardet, Miguel Angel Lopez, they're not great time trialists either. But
they have the X factor of Tom Dumoulin. We spoke about that a little bit yesterday.
Exactly.
I mean, Nobody really knows where his condition is or where his head is. But he'd be, I think, the one outlier if we knew he was on form. He could steal some time there.
Not only that, but the way he's coming into the race, where everybody's kind of accepted he's gone through some hard times mentally, being at the top of his game for so long and taking a bit of a step back, which I think most of the peloton can respect, taking almost half a year or a year off, coming back to the Giro where he's ridden really well in the past. So I feel like he's got a lot less pressure, and who knows, this could be a breakout race for him.
Since you mentioned the time trial, we usually get the Filippo Ganna show. It'll be unusual not to see him dominate that. Is that because they're saving him for the Tour de France, or why is he not there?
I don't know. I mean, it's definitely. I mean, if you look at Ineos, of course, Ganna would be a great asset for Carapaz on the flats. But they are complete. Ganna must have other ambitions. I don't know if he's also focusing on maybe the track, the World Championships for the track. I don't know. But another thing, for example, Ineos didn't take Elia Viviani. They signed him back to Ineos, and he's definitely not a rider for the Tour de France. So they don't even take him to the Giro. So that's to prove that they have full confidence in Carapaz and have a team, completely at his service.
Well, Johan, and not to mention, you mentioned this could be a personal choice for Ganna. I mean, obviously, Ineos could have different ambitions of the Tour de France this year with not having a clear favorite. They're going to want to get the yellow jersey early on. Who's a better play than Ganna? So even though it's his hometown race, the Tour de France could perhaps be more important for the team and for him personally.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, getting yellow in the Tour for a rider is with George, you had it a few 2 days, no? 2 days or 1 day?
1 day. 1 day.
Okay, 1 day. Okay, me too. Look, we three yellow jersey wearers together. I just realized that now. Lance has a few more, but little detail. But yeah, I mean, it's
depends who you ask.
That's true. Okay, we'll stay away from that.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, in my opinion, Ineos is the big favorite, but it's also gonna, it's a disadvantage also because it's one big favorite, and you can have a situation where it's the whole peloton against one team. We all know how difficult that is. Not that Carapaz is unbeatable, but it could be difficult to carry the weight of the whole Giro.
Well, Johan, I think it'd be really good for our listeners and viewers to understand what your tactics would be if you were leading Ineos, or if you were leading Bike Exchange, or Astana with Superman Lopez. I mean, obviously 3 clearly different tactics. How would you look at those going into those on the 3 different teams?
Yeah, I mean, if you're Ineos, you don't have to have a crystal ball, to know that you're in charge of the race, and everybody's going to look at that team, whatever happens. So it's a matter of trying to create a situation in the first week that a team takes the yellow jersey, the pink jersey in this case, with a considerable advantage, and that they try to hang on to that, because a team who gets the leader's jersey in the first few days, this could be their main ambition, to stay as long as possible in pink. That's what I would like to try to do. I mean, that's what we did back in the day. Sometimes, remember that one year with Vöckler, and then the other year with what's his name, Francois Simon, who had that monster lead,
30-minute lead. That was like one of the few years where I'm like, guys, what are you doing? We're letting this great breakaway get 30 minutes.
He did not, George. He did not have a 30-minute lead. He was in that 30-minute breakaway, but he lost 14 minutes the day before or something. It was still 16, 17 minutes. I agree, but
too much.
He didn't keep it. So, but yeah, I mean, I would try to do that. The thing is that nowadays cycling has changed so much that, it's always straightforward racing, and I can't see these strategic moves thinking ahead 1 or 2 weeks. They're racing for the day and the day after. That's it. There's always a team that's racing for the win.
I agree. When I did the Giro in 2006 or 7, man, it was like the best race ever, because one day was full gas, and the next day is the Italians would go to the front. Hey, today we take it easy. It's 250 kilometers. We'll race at the end. I mean, it was a race where you can really go into and sort of gain form or really pick and choose your days, where now there's none of that anymore.
I don't think there's that. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be the case.
No,
right. You also had these, Patron-esque guys in the field. I mean, maybe it wasn't Cipollini or guys like that were, super patrons, but there's nobody like that on the Italian side that's going to convince everybody to stop in the local gelato shop in their village, which legit they used to do. Like, hey, everybody, this is my favorite gelato shop. We should all stop. And fucking the whole peloton would stop.
Yeah.
Have a gelato and go, hey, you know what? Should we get going again? Okay.
Not only that, you don't have the Italian registered powerhouse teams anymore, like you did back in the day. You got good Italians, but you got small teams, but not the Pro Tour teams.
Yeah, why is there not a strong Italian presence team-wise? What's your theory?
It's just cyclical. I mean, the look at the Italian teams in the race this year. They are you would have to call all of those teams quote unquote small. They're smaller teams, right? The days of Mercatoni Uno, Carrera, Gives, all this Psycho, all these big.
I think it has a lot to do also with the Italian economy. There's no big companies coming in to sponsor a cycling team. The Italian economy has suffered a lot, and it's sad to see. Although you may think, okay, UAE, Bahrain, they're kind of Italian teams. You would say the management is Italian.
Johan, there's no doubt. I mean, the Italian, presence is still there. Trek, like you said, Astana, they all have Italian directors. They all have Italian strong presences, but we don't have that, full Italian team anymore.
Right. But you know what else they don't have? They don't have a great Italian hope. JB, to answer your question, I mean, that's what, if you go back to the teams we just rattled off, Mercatoni Uno rallied around Pantani and Seiko rallied around Cipollini and Vera around Chiappucci. All these, they had real bona fide stars. Yeah. All of those guys, arguably, arguably some of the biggest sports stars in Italy. Italy does not have that right now.
Yeah, that's true.
Straight up.
That's true.
And so, even as dominant as a Filippo Ganna is, he is not. You also kind of have to be Chippo being the outlier because he was a sprinter, but they love their GC riders. They love guys that can wear the pink, potentially wear yellow, win the world championship. So he's not there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Well, who can give Carapaz a run for his money? Who are the closest ones?
The second biggest favorite, I think in everybody's mind and the odds makers is Simon Yates, he's got the resume, but hasn't looked good. I mean, is that how we do this with just the resume? I mean, maybe.
I think he's got
a perfect build-up. He's got the resume for sure.
He's got the resume. He had an amazing ride the last stage of Paris-Nice. So he definitely has the form that, hasn't been popping out as much as some of these other guys, but Can't count him out. He's got the pedigree in Grand Tours. In fact, Giro a couple of years ago, he was by far the best guy. Perhaps went a bit did too much early on in the middle and kind of faded towards the end. But if he has that kind of form this year, you definitely cannot count him out.
No, also, last year he finished third in the Giro and changed his approach a little bit to the Tour of Italy. He learned that the Giro was won in the last week and that you have to be patient and look. And I saw an interview today of him. He said, I'm just going to wait and let the race come towards me. Last year he was really strong in the last week, and this year I think we haven't seen a lot of results of these guys because they focus on these main objectives. They race less and less. They all are at altitude. Simon Yates came back from an altitude camp, and he did the 3-day stage race here in Spain. Not a high competition, but Ivan Sosa won it from Movistar. He won the first. Simon Yates won the first stage and the third stage, and completely broke down in the second stage. Apparently, or reportedly, because of the heat.
The heat, yeah,
the heat. So I think Simon Yates is definitely a real contender. Little question mark about his team though. The team strength. Carapaz definitely has a stronger team, but then again, I think that Simon Yates and Bike Exchange they can put themselves in a situation. Okay, everything is up to Ineos, and we'll just see how it goes and just try to not lose time.
Well, and two quick things. I think he's right to say I'm just going to let the race come to me. When you have a clear favorite in Carapaz, you have that team that he has behind him. You kind of have no choice. So. Okay, good call. The other thing is keep in mind, and we all know Matt White very well. Matt White is a very smart director. And so this idea of, hey, we're just going to sit back, let the race come to us, maybe play some possum here and there. Matt White knows that game. So I would, I'd follow Matt White around for sure.
I think they're at their fourth attempt to try to win the Giro, and they've learned. I think they've learned a lot. Hopefully, I hope the best and the strongest guy wins. But I hope for Simon Yates and for cycling that he doesn't have this bad day that he usually has, and that he can be a real contender and a real threat for Carapaz, because he's a spectacular rider with a punchy attack. And in the last week, the way the course is lined out, it's going to be fireworks in the last week when everybody's already super tired. So
how does a guy like that prevent from having his historical bad day? Is it you just work better at nutrition? Do you go
crush your fingers?
Okay.
During the Grand Tour, everything's about recovering after the stages. So they just take every little detail they can, whether it's getting to the massage table first, leaving the finish area as quickly as possible, getting into your hotel. Every second in that bedroom where you're not doing nothing, recovering adds up. And I think these guys are, starting to think about that from day one.
But it just takes any little, just one bad night to your point, JB, who knows? It might be a day where, you just didn't eat enough at dinner, or you just didn't sleep right because there was noise out on the street, or the mattress sucked, or who knows. And boy, you wake up the next day, get on the bike, like, something's not firing here. And then you have to go to this. And if it's a tough day, well, all of that gets exposed. If it's a not so tough day, you just have to grin and bear it.
Yeah. Especially in Simon Yates' case, if we go back to the year he was super strong. He was, he attacked and he took time, and it's the year that actually had one bad day, and then Chris Froome turned it around, and he did that monster ride and won the Giro finally. That's exactly what you don't have to do. He was already in the lead, and he just kept attacking and, doing these efforts of, 15, 20, 30 kilometers on their own for 45 seconds. Okay, you can say it's another 45 seconds, but it's definitely, he's learned from that. So I think we have to keep it in mind. Another guy that's really, one of the candidates who doesn't have the pedigree yet, but is up and coming, is João Almeida. Changed from Quick Step to UAE, is the firm leader of UAE in the Giro. Did 2 times the Giro. He was 6th and 4th. And so I believe in him. I believe that he could be a real candidate for the podium, and whoever's candidate for the podium can win it.
What is that? But their director, sorry, Lance. Not only that, but their directors already said, like, we're giving this kid sort of free reign. We'd love to see him get on the podium, but they don't have a ton of pressure on him. So I think he's going in, with a bit less pressure and just going to see what he can do, which is a good position to be in.
And what is we touched on Superman Lopez a little bit, but we have to acknowledge that things are not perfect at Team Astana. I don't know the latest on the riders being paid or not being paid, but how is that going to affect certainly himself? But keep in mind, you got to have 7 of the guys around him that are in the same boat, that are all looking at each other. Wait a minute, we're out here for 3 weeks in these horrid conditions and not getting paid? Or is that
brings back some memories from the Giro, Lance, on that team.
Exactly. No, I mean, the dinner table is not the same, and the ride to the start and the ride back home from the finish, everybody just miserable, getting their ass kicked, and then going.
Well, and there's probably a big difference between Lopez being a contender, but the morale of the rest of the team.
That's what I'm saying.
That paycheck that needs that paycheck.
All the way through to the mechanics, soigneurs, everybody.
I've heard. I have information that they're maybe 1 month behind, so they're 1 month behind. So at least they've been paid until the end of March at least. So it's and you know what, at some point, especially in Superman Lopez's case, he's riding for his future. He knows that he has to perform here, even if he's not going to be on that team anymore. He's riding for his contract and his value. But I agree, it's if you're in an environment that's complaining and dragging themselves, that energy is transmitted to everybody, and
that's contagious.
Not only that, Johan, but after last year's debacle in the Vuelta, I think he's going to want to prove a point that he is a podium contender. So he's got a ton of motivation behind him, and I can definitely see him fighting for it towards the end.
Listen, he's a guy. He's going to be up there. He won a stage in the Tour of the Alps 2 weeks ago. Has also focused exclusively on the Giro in the first half of the season. So. Superman Lopez is going to be top 5 for sure. In his advantage, also not so many time trial kilometers, so that's obviously good for him too. Then another guy that we need to talk about is Romain Bardet. I think Bardet he moved away from the French team last year on DSM. Won a stage in the Vuelta and he got top 10. I don't know if he was 6th or 7th in the Giro. Is in great shape. Just recently won the Tour of the Alps.
Sounds like that's a good dark horse pick, I think.
Mm-hmm. I like it. Yeah. Another thing we need to mention about Romain Bardet is he is an insane descender, and there is some insane descents in the Giro D'Italia, as we all know. He's one of the guys that can climb with the best in the world, but arguably is a lot better descender than any of those guys that can climb.
Yeah. Carapaz is not a great descender, by the way.
Yeah.
So
not or is
not.
Yeah, correct. So there we could see some truly exciting, which as a cyclist we don't love, but as a spectator, nothing more exciting than watching these guys bomb down the hills.
Yep. Yeah. Let's turn our attention to the sprinters, because I think this is the start of. I'll just say it. I think this is the start of Mark Cavendish's political campaign to be selected for the Tour. We've spent an inordinate amount of time talking about this going back to last Tour de France, last year's Tour, and will he or will he not be selected for the Quick Step Tour de France squad, which of course would give him, for those who haven't paid attention, would give him the opportunity to break Eddie Merckx's record for total stage wins, which of course are now tied on. I think if I'm Cav, I say, okay, this is the start of my campaign to convince Lefevre. Don't Don't shrug.
No.
I like this. I think this is juicy.
I'm gonna agree with you, Lance. But I don't think he needs to. I don't think he needs to start a campaign. The Quick Step, they have put the odds on the side of Cavendish. They've put together a team for him. Mm-hmm. They even selected at the last moment Morkov as the lead-out man. So they want him to do well, and I think that his chances have increased a lot by, unfortunately, the crash of Alaphilippe. It's going to be difficult for Alaphilippe to be at the start of the Tour de France. And if he gets at the start of the Tour de France, it's not going to be our usual Alaphilippe that, starts in the first week and takes yellow and then, does his thing. So I would not rule out that Lefevre goes with 2 sprinters to the Tour de France. I mean, I don't see why not.
Not only that, but there is no negatives to Cav doing the Giro. Cav has a home in Italy. Italy's is basically he loves the Italian culture. I think he's happy to be at the Giro, and there's no downside. He does well at the Giro. He's going to hopefully go to the Tour de France, but I think he's really excited to be at the start of the Giro d'Italia.
Do you know that, George? Do you know that, George, if he still has his home in Italy? I mean, he hasn't responded to you like in 2 years, so maybe he doesn't have his home anymore.
He's got it.
Ma non è comunicazione con Giorgio.
It's the same with Lance. When was the last time you got a response from Lance over text? I think it's about like 4 or 5 months.
5 minutes. I got a response 5 minutes before we started this show.
It's just me.
I texted George after the show yesterday because Johan was convinced that George was pissed because I was giving him grief about his bromance with all these guys. Johan's like, he's pissed.
He was not happy.
I'm not.
And I texted him. I was like, "You cranky, man."
You know what? I think it just means Lance loves me more than he actually would ever admit, because he kind of feels a little pain when he sees me hanging out with other people. So you know what? I take that as a compliment. But I do want to point out. Before we move on to some others. Well, we're still talking about Cav and everything, but I need Lance. Can you stand up real quick? Because we're always talking about being profi. Lance has got the chamois on during the show, which for me is very non-profi. I don't know what's happening there.
All manscaped,
but it's a little disturbing. Anyway, back to the sprint stages, Johan.
It's called efficiency, right? I don't mind sitting here chamoised up and start channeling my peloton. We're talking about bike racing, so I'm channeling that. Got the chamois on, got the leg warmers, and I'm going to hit the bike right after this because I've got stuff this afternoon. So it's all about efficiency.
All right. Got it.
So anyway, sprint stages, I looked at all the stages. So there's potentially stage 3, 5, 6, 11, 12, 13, and 18.
The operative word there is potentially, because a lot of these days, and it's Italy. We know what the Tour of Italy is like. There are no stages, like most races. It is just always up and down. So when you say potentially, that's what you mean.
That's seven stages, but let's not forget. I would say at least until stage 13, because the last week a lot of sprinters are going to pull out or already be out of the time limit or whatever. But there are at least 3 or 4 teams there that their only mission is to protect their sprinter, and especially Quickstep and Lotto. Arguably the 2 fastest sprinters, Cavendish and Caleb Ewan. They have the team around their sprinter. So whenever there's an opportunity, they're going to work together.
And by the way, a team like Lotto has had, we talk about teams that we sort of joke and say, hey, have they started the season yet? Now, this is a program that needs some success starting right now.
Yeah, because they're fighting relegation. They're for the moment, they're out of the World Tour. This year is the year where there's new licenses going to be attributed at the end of the season for the next 3 years. Either you're in or, you're 3 years sitting out, and you could, like Lotto, if they're out, they can only get access to the big races by invitation, which is, for a team like Lotto with such a history, they're in the sport since, I think, 1984, 83. They were already sponsoring the cycling team. They have not gone away since. And so that's obviously a team that they need to score. They recently in mid-season, they have hired two extra riders that were out of a contract. So that's obviously panic there. Caleb Ewan is their hope. If he's healthy and not injured, it's almost a guarantee he's going to win one or two stages.
Yep, agreed.
In their case, Caleb Ewan is not going to finish the Giro, because for sure he's doing the Tour de France and try to win a stage there in the first week. So we have those two teams, two strong teams around the sprinter that they're going to control those stages. They have nothing else to do.
Do the riders get something in their contracts that if they're not a World Tour eligible, they can get out of a contract? Because Caleb Ewan's going to be there for 2 more years.
Good question, and yes, the answer is yes. If
a team is relegated, they have an exit clause.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. The thing is, they do. They do. The thing is that they're not going to know until November or December. So, in the transfer market, there's going to be some teams who will be waiting to sign the last 3 or 4 riders. And, they already know they have to keep a budget free to potentially make that move in November or December, to sign a guy like Caleb Ewan or whoever is interesting in Israel Premier Tech, for example, is the other team that they're in 19th or 20th spot.
Have they started the season yet?
Okay. I haven't seen them. Yes, they do actually, because I've seen Chris Froome a lot on TV, but was in the back of the peloton.
Oh, okay.
No doubt, a lot of pressure, a lot of excess pressure on these teams in the lower part of the rankings there, which is going to play into a lot of the tactics as well. I mean, we'll be able to see things before they're actually happening based on how much pressure these teams are to get points.
And the small and to combine what we touched on earlier, these smaller Italian teams that are the only Italian teams, these guys love to animate the race. They get a ton of pressure from, a lot of these teams have, not just one single title sponsor. You see the jerseys, they've got like 15 sponsors. So then you've got 15 CEOs calling the marketing guy calling the team going, hey, we want TV time, go on the attack. Like it trickles down like that. Like, what the hell am I doing? Why am I sponsoring this team? Come on, let's go. Animate, be aggressive. Yep. You'll see it. They will be very aggressive.
Yeah. Well, it also facilitates a little bit the task of the teams who have to control the race, because you get into a scenario where you see daily, the attack is there's 3 wild cards teams, and then, maybe 1 or 2. They all know that this breakaway is not going to go anywhere, that those teams are in the race precisely for the TV time. And maybe, one time in 30 or 40, one breakaway makes it to the finish because they calculated wrong. But yeah, I mean, this struggle for the World Tour, this battle is obviously having an influence. Also, it has an influence in another way, is that some teams, because, we're talking about the Giro d'Italia here, but, we all know that it's super difficult to score points in the big races. So some teams actually leave some of their stronger riders out of the Giro and go during the Giro, for example, to the Tour of Hungary. I mean,
cherry picking.
It's a coincidence that the Tour of Italy starts in Hungary, but during the Tour of Italy, there's also the Tour of Hungary, where, for example, when you win the Tour of Hungary, you have to be 6th or 7th in the Giro to have the same amount of points.
Let me speaking of Hungary, Johan, just because I'd have to look up where that is. I don't even know where that is, but I think it's close to a war, which is already not a good thing for me. But it must be cold. I always talk about the weather, but I have to imagine it's pretty fresh. Potentially,
I think it's okay. It's not hot, but I've seen pictures yesterday of the team presentation, and they were not wearing gloves. I would expect it's like whatever, 14, 15, 16 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, interesting. Look at Budapest. High 70s. Shows you what I know. I thought it was like snowing. Okay. No, never mind.
Well, 70% chance of rain on Saturday, or that's the time trial, right? Saturday's the time trial.
TT Saturday.
Yeah,
it's in effect. It's kind of a prologue. It's weird. You have a stage one with a pretty difficult uphill finish, which we should probably spend some time chatting about right quick, and then stage two, they kind of drop in a prologue-esque stage.
Yeah, but also with the last 2 kilometers steep uphill.
You mentioned, Johan, that our GC contenders are not all strong time trialists. Who are a couple of the favorites for time trials in this Giro?
I think for the first 2 stages, in my opinion, we have the same favorite, Mathieu van der Poel. Van der Poel, he can do a 9-kilometer time trial. Talking about stage one, I think he is the big favorite. If it's as hard as they say, this last 5 kilometers at 5 to 6%, it has Mathieu van der Poel written all over this stage. Yep. He himself plays down his chances a little bit and says that it's going to be difficult to drop the sprinters, but the sprinters that can hang on, they will be running out of gas, I think, and Van der Poel will still have that extra acceleration. So if the winner of tomorrow's stage is Van der Poel and he's in pink, I see him winning the time trial too.
And then it'll be how long can he stay in pink show, right? That's what's exciting about him.
That's stage 4.
Look at stage 4. I mean, that your answer to that is on stage 4. Okay. Of that. No,
we can't count out Dumoulin for the time trial. I mean, if he's got good form, obviously one of the best TTs in the world, but with a 2-kilometer uphill finish, typically both on best form, that would suit Dumoulin more than Van der Poel. But either way, it's going to be super exciting.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
How is Dumoulin's fitness after his break, his hiatus from what have we seen so far?
It was not great in the beginning of the season. So he started in the Tour of UAE, where basically he had to confirm a little bit. Let's not forget he started again last year and he finished second in the Olympic time trial, silver medal. Which was, a surprise for everybody. First of all, we were all surprised that he was even selected for the Olympic time trial before he had done one race, but he finished second. And he had some races where it went okay, but then this year, Tour of UAE, he was not there on the uphill finishes 2 times, and then he in stage 2 of the Tour of Catalonia, he dropped out already. He hasn't raced. He did one race. He did one day race in Holland where he was okay. And then he went to altitude. And, the information that I have is that he said to someone I know that, at the end of in the last week of the altitude training camp, he started to feel good and, the legs were feeling comfortable. And he had good hopes that he was going to be okay for the Giro.
We shall see.
But it could be an advantage also for a guy like Dumoulin. I mean, nobody really expects anything crazy except maybe himself. But having that approach and get into that race and I'm going to see how I go. I have to be careful with my efforts. That could be an advantage because this is really a guy who can grow into the Giro and start to feel better than he expects, and get the morale and be strong in the last week.
And even though he is not one of our favorites for the uphill finish, the uphill sprint finish, whatever we're going to call it for tomorrow, we're going to see. I mean, that's a hard enough finish that if you're bad, or if you're just not going to be there, it's going to be revealed. But we'll see tomorrow because if we'll see the race. I mean, if he's comfortably in the field and up front and doesn't lose any time, which I suspect he won't, then might have to be the favorite for stage 2.
He may lose some time to a guy like Van der Poel who may
in the actual sprint. That's fine.
Yeah, in the sprint. Right. Yeah, exactly.
I'm curious, are we going to see the same COVID protocols that we've had for the last 2 years? If a team member, a staff member tests positive, they're out. What is that looking like?
some teams have done it in the beginning of the year in smaller races. I don't think there's any more regulations in terms of, okay, last year and 2 years ago, the UCI had a regulation, one staff member or two staff members are positive, the whole team out. I don't think that's the case anymore. But it's a matter of which decision the team takes, right? Everything's more relaxed now in Europe. I guess it's the same in the United States. There's no more masks, but you will see that teams keep following the prevention protocols. Hotels are not the same. Every team is in their own bubble. There's almost no contact in between different teams, and so they try to keep everybody as separate as possible.
I wonder if it changes riders' mentality. It's spending 2 years, keeping COVID at bay. You guys always talk about how hard it is to stay healthy during a Grand Tour. That 3 weeks, you're depleted. They may change their habits going forward for Grand Tours on how they interact, mask up, just to stay healthy.
I think that has happened already. It's they all know they have a limited amount of time to perform at the highest level. So these habits is something that it's a little sacrifice, but it's worth it. It's worth trying to eliminate this risk of getting sick. I mean, independently of COVID.
Mm-hmm. Good points. All right. Well, we shall see, and we'll. What's our schedule here, JB? What are we doing? Once a week, twice a week?
The move. We've got end of each week.
End of each week. Okay. Weekly updates.
La Movida is going to go daily.
Daily. Wow.
And JB squared twice a week.
Damn.
And outcomes every day.
And outcomes every day. We launched the show yesterday. Hey, and we were chatting about it before. The sports betting is not non-controversial, but it's here to stay, right? Legal in 18 states thus far, just domestically, and surely to be more in the future. So, look, we're not asking anybody to do anything crazy. We're just sort of speculating on what's out there. People are going to do it. So you may as well get educated if you choose.
Yeah. If you didn't catch that show, it's the previous one in your podcast feed to this, or you can watch it on YouTube, but it's Johan and Spencer Martin from Beyond the Peloton making their picks for you. You can access it through our season pass. So you get all the benefits of a season pass. The free tea, the discounted items, you get you get to watch the show pre-show, watch it recorded live, all those benefits, and you get access to outcomes.
Cool.
Love it. All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Tomorrow, we'll be up early. It's going to be exciting tomorrow. Actually, the first 4 days, this is going to tell us a lot about this Giro. Actually, I'm sorry, because one of those days is a transfer day. So the first 5 days, we'll know a lot.
So everybody unanimously picks the Van der Poel for the win tomorrow? Pink jersey?
Yes.
I think all right.
Yes.
Good.
Okay. That was easy.
All right.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you guys in a week.